My name is Bob, and this is going to be my trailer. It doesn't have a name yet. It was tentatively Dusty just because of the way the weather's been the last few days. All right, welcome to the inside of the trailer, and I think we'll start with the kitchen area. I was a trained chef for a few years before my accident, and so the very first thing I designed in this trailer was the kitchen area. And I knew I wanted a stove and oven, a good sink, a vent hood, and then plenty of storage. So I actually like the oven. I've used it several times to make like enchiladas, cook off pizza, nachos. Pretty basic stuff, but it's really come in handy, stuff that I couldn't do before. I haven't done any baking with it. I'm kind of curious to do that because it says that it gets up over 400 degrees, but I'm not sure it does. One of my favorite things to make is biscuits, so that was kind of my reason for getting an oven. But I had the butcher block style countertops in my house when I lived in Portland and loved them because I can use anywhere as a prep area. Drawback is because they're oiled and waxed, it kind of collects the dust, but I love it. I like the look of it. I like how it functions. Have to be a little careful with water, but with as much oil and waxes on it, it beads up right away. The backsplash is actually aluminum flashing like you'd use on a house, and I just took one of the rollers that you would use to put the splines for screens in and got my 45 going one direction and then the other, and I had a 2-inch wide ruler, so I just flipped it over so that it kept the pattern consistent. I found one video of that on YouTube, and I really like the idea. I like the look of it. I like the fact that it's easy to clean, and I kind of think it just sets everything off. Well, the sink is 8 inches deep, so it's plenty deep, and it's a good size. I think it's 16 by 16. The faucet is not the greatest because I had a different faucet in here originally, and I couldn't find that one again. So this one is actually a little too tall for that to sit in there. I've only got a 10-gallon water tank, but you really learn to conserve water out here anyway. So that's been working out really well. I've got the 8 drawers. These are 4 inches deep. These are 6, and it's kind of almost too much. I find that now I've got a junk drawer where everything just gets thrown that I don't know where else to put it. And I've only been in this full time for about 2 months. So it's still in its organization stage. It's finding stuff, going, I don't really need this. I don't know why I brought it, and getting rid of it. And that's something that everybody does. And going from a 60 square foot rig to this one, it's like, hey, I've got so much more space. I can take this, I can take this, I can take this. And it's just like, get out here. And I'm like, why did I bring this? And so there's always that constant purge, that constant reorganization until you kind of really get it where you need it to be. And with my cabinets, I built fixed shelves. I probably should have built adjustables. And that's why I have a lot of my stuff down here on these spice racks. But then again, it's also really convenient to the stove. Like I said, when I was a chef or a cook, I don't really think I had enough knowledge to be a chef. So when I was a cook, it's like, you know, you learn your triangulation and you keep everything that you use all the time at hand. So that's when I decided to do the 2 spice racks. They work out. They're just ones that you can get from like Lowe's or Home Depot. So they've been working out really well. And then I've got my copper pots or my copper pans. I collected all those when I lived in Oregon. I'd go to the Goodwill and find one, and you know, it's like, I don't think I have $30 in all those, and I love using them. They work really good, especially with the stove because it's not a really high heat, but the copper, like when you use it, the whole thing heats up. So it's got a really nice consistent heat to it. So, but that's why the middle one's all discolored because I haven't bothered polishing that one back up. But that was one of the things that I really wanted to bring, is because it brings me joy. That's the other thing. When you get rid of stuff or you keep stuff, it's like, find what brings you joy. And if it doesn't, then, and it's not, you're not using it, it goes. So and it makes it feel more like home. That's the big thing, is in these rigs, you have to make it comfortable and you have to make it feel like home. got into camping and I really loved it. I've always loved the outdoors, hunting and fishing. And then was living in Oregon where, you know, you can go backpacking, you can do all this stuff outside. And then 2008, I was walking my dog with my wife at the time, and I was hit by a drunk driver. He hit me, we both hit a tree. I was in between the van and the tree, wound up losing my leg and in a wheelchair. And that just upset my entire world. At that point I was cooking when I went to culinary school, and even before that, I had a goal that I said, if I'm ever a cook, I want to work at this restaurant. It's called Higgins in Portland. And that was like my end goal. That was like where I really wanted to end up at some point in my career. So when I was in school, before we graduated, we had to go do a 2-week internship somewhere, and I did it there. And after that, they offered me a job, and it's like, I hit the one place I wanted right out of the ballpark. Greg Higgins, who's the executive chef there and co-owner, he built an atmosphere of learning. It's like all the people that were there, I mean, you just learn so much information. He knows so much about food and foraging and everything else. It's just an amazing place to work. And then I lost that, and that had become my identity. So I was lost, quite honestly, and I spent a lot of time that way for the next few years. And we tried getting out camping. I still would fly fish. I would still manage to get out hunting. It's just everything was so much more difficult, and I always had to rely on somebody else. And that's something I personally am not good at. I've been told multiple times that, you know, I'm willing to help anybody and do anything that I possibly can, but when it comes time for me to accept help, it's like, screw it, I'm not doing it. I've got to do it myself. And I've really had to learn to get over that being in a wheelchair. And eventually it just got down to, I was sitting in the house, I was watching a lot of TV, I wasn't doing anything, I was miserable. And I'd seen the show on this place called Chaco Canyon out in New Mexico. And my wife Tanya at the time, I looked at her and said, I'm taking that little 10-foot utility trailer we have, I'm putting a bed in it, I'm putting a sink in it, I'm throwing in some clothes, and I'm going out there. And she's like, okay, do it. And she supported me 100%. So I took 6 weeks, drove out to Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, stayed out there for like 2 weeks, and then took a lot of time driving back to North Carolina, and was like, for the first time in a long time, I was at peace. Kind of starting up front here, this is my coat closet, and then I have a cabinet down here that just has all of my dog's food, toys, whatnot. He has to have his own space as much as I do. And then of course, you just have your coat rack and whatnot for stuff you use every day. And as I said before, working in kitchens, I learned, the work triangle is very important. So that's how my fridge wound up on this side. It was supposed to be where this clothes closet is, but this I think works better because I can literally go from the stove to the sink to the closet in my wheelchair, just spin, and I don't have to roll around. I'm not moving around that much. So, I mean, convenience wise, it's just about perfect. And then I have my toilet down here. It's just a cassette toilet. And this is just all pots and pans. This is all like my hanging clothes. And then I've got a couple of plastic tubs in there where I keep my t-shirts, my zip off pants, but otherwise up top is just like my hanging shirts, some jackets, sweatshirts, things that when you try to roll them up and put them in a cabinet, they just take up a lot of room. So it may seem like it takes up a lot of room just to have that hanging cabinet, but since the vast majority of my clothes are in there, it works out really well. And in the drawers over next to the kitchen, or in the kitchen, is where I keep like my socks and my underwear and whatnot, because it's just convenient. So this is the V-nose of the trailer, so it's the very front, and I got a V-nose purposely so that, number one, it tows better through the wind, but I have this area that I could use for all my electronics. They'd be hidden, but yet protected because of the door, so you're not getting all the dust and dirt in there. And it just, it made the whole build cleaner. You're not seeing wires run everywhere. And I have 1,000 watts of solar on the roof, and I run it through 2 different charge controllers. That way I've got the breakers between the battery and the charge controller, but I also have a marine grade on-off switch between the panels and the charge controller. So that way, like today, even though I was way down on my battery with only running 2 of the panels, I was able to charge my battery up really fast. And then if it's when I go up in the Pacific Northwest or up into the mountains, I can run full 1,000 watts if it's a little cloudy or whatever, and I still get a pretty decent charge on my battery. And that's 200 amp hour lithium that I got from Ampere Time. I haven't had any problems with it so far, so I'm pretty happy with that. It's a 2,000 watt pure sine wave inverter, and it has a transfer switch built in. So if I'm somewhere where I can plug into electricity, it's got a 30 amp plug outside. I plug into that. The inverter automatically shuts off and transfers over, so all my 110's still working. The battery, I wish it had a built-in battery charger so that I could shut the solar off at the same time, but I mean, it is what it is. I could do that at another time if I have a problem with it, but so far I haven't had any reason to. The other, I've got all my 12 volt in 2 different fuse blocks there. So one is the one on the right is everything on the right side of the trailer. One on the left is everything on the left side. So I don't have to really chase circuits because they're all mismatched. And I really tried to keep all the wiring as clean as possible. With the sides of the Vinos, I actually built shelves that angle in so that I can put small stuff. Like I keep my stuff sacks with like my down jackets and vests in it. I've got canned food up in there, stuff that I don't use very often. And they're tucked away. Right here's all my woodworking and electrical tools, some regular wrenches and whatnot. And it all stays up there because it's convenient, but it's not used very often. So it's out of the way. It's not taking up valuable cabinet space for stuff I use every day or once a week. This was a challenge to myself. I knew I could do the build. I didn't know how well I could do the build. And that to me was kind of the exciting part of doing this. Like I said, the bed lift, putting the solar panels on the roof, putting the awning on, I had to have help for that. I knew that didn't bother me, but like doing all the woodworking, building the cabinets, I sewed my own cushions. I literally did everything else in here pretty much by myself. And it was a challenge. It was me saying, this is your vision. How close can you come to it? So, whenever I ran into something I didn't know, I would either find somebody that did, or I'd search around on the internet and find answers. And of course, you watch 6 videos, there's 6 different ways to do it. I just had to figure out, combine this, and that's what worked for me. And that's another thing is, when you do something like this, you can do a lot more than you think you can. Being able to do this really, not only does it bring out the pride, but it brings out the satisfaction of knowing that even though I lost one part of myself, I found another. And, like I said, I'm surprised that I would ever love the desert as much as I do, but I do. It's a different kind of beauty. And if you love sunsets, it's the place to go. Moving to the back of the trailer, I have a bed lift. It's made by Happy Jack. I was able to find a used one online. So I wanted enough space in here with my wheelchair that I had like a little seating area, living area, but yet I wanted a queen size bed. I was tired of sleeping on just a little memory foam bench. So I wanted a queen size bed. It works out perfect. my dog wants to get up in there with me, there's plenty of room because he's a bit of a bed hog. So, and it's nice because it tucks right up against the ceiling. I actually have room on either end. There's little pockets and I keep all my fishing rods in there. So that's another place that would be wasted space, but now it's got a use. And that is just on a switch. And it lowers down. It will lower down to the height of the benches and then goes right back up against the ceiling so that I don't hit my head on it. If other people walk in and hit their head on it, well, I usually warn them. But if they forget, that's on them, not me. And like I said, I got plenty of headroom, so I don't really care. And then, again, it gives me access to seating area, so I actually have a couch with a back on this side. The other side, I just have a bench. It's nice because it's 26 inches wide. If it's late and I get back and I don't have the bed ready to go, I can just throw my pillows on there, grab a sleeping bag, crash there. Or if I'm traveling for the night, with the bed lifts, you have to pin them and let it sit on the pins while you travel so it's not bouncing. So if I'm stopping for the night, just throw my pillows and the sleeping bag on this bench over here and I can crash on that. So I actually have a couple different ways to sleep in here. And then Archie's bed usually lays back by the doors in the back. And when I bring this down, he loves it because he's got his own little cave to sleep in. One of the things I put in that I had in my other trailer was a max air fan. And this one's actually remote controlled because trailer's 7 foot tall. I'm not. So it's like, I went ahead and spent a little bit extra on the remote controlled version, but I really like the max air fans because they work really good. They're not super loud. I mean, it's white noise when it is running, and it's got the cover over it. So if it's pouring rain out, I've never had a problem with water getting in. I can still run it. Then I've got the two small windows up in the back, and then I've got the escape window, and my entire back wall is just screen doors. So I get tons of airflow. I don't really have a problem with keeping the trailer cool most of the time. The screen doors on the back came about with my other trailer. I was living in North Carolina. It was pushing 100 degrees and 100% humidity for 2 weeks, and it wasn't supposed to stop. And I'm going up to the UP of Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. I'm going up to the Upper Peninsula. But in the summer, you have a problem with black flies and gnats. And I knew I wanted airflow in the trailer, so I designed a 3-panel one for my 6 foot wide and just used full extension drawer slides. That's what the doors slide open on. And it worked out so well. I'm like doing it on this one, but I had to do 4 panels because of it being 8 foot on the interior. But it works out really well. It looks amazing. It gives me great airflow. So we're outside the trailer, and this is Archie. He's my pup. Should be called Pigpen because everywhere he goes, there's a cloud of dust with him. But again, another negative of this lifestyle is sometimes you get dirty, sometimes you get dusty. So the outside of the trailer, one thing that I had on my other one, and I knew I was putting on this one, was an awning. When it's raining, I can still get out here and cook, unless it's, because I have little Coleman stove that I use outside. If I'm doing something that makes a mess, I will use that. And sometimes it's just nice to be outside. Like, I can cook a bigger meal. Since I've been here, I've cooked, I think one night we had 12 people that I cooked for. So the awning is a big deal for me in the morning, especially since my door's facing south. I can put the awning out and it keeps the side of the trailer out of the sun, helps keep the trailer cool. Again, it's great for if it's sprinkling or raining when you're somewhere like that. I've got just an RV mat down with my old rig. I actually took pieces of plywood that I could strap together so that I could roll around on my wheelchair really easy. Problem is rocks. No matter where you go out here, and most places, you're never gonna have level ground. It was a great idea. It worked for about 3 months, and then everything started coming apart because I was never on even solid ground. So the RV mat works. My wheelchair really tears up the ground. When I spin around, it just like digs the rocks up, or shoves the rocks down, brings the sand up. So the mat, which you may or may not be able to see because of all the dirt on it, really helps out. And it, you know, having the table out here, like I said, we've had up to 12 people out here eating dinner one night, and everybody knows you bring a plate and you bring a fork. So, and we'll feed you. It really kind of, again, it turns into that community, turns into that communal meal. When you get people sitting down and eating together, amazing things happen. I mean, just people open up about their lives, and people open up about things. They ask questions that normally you wouldn't ask. And for some reason, sitting down eating together is just, I don't know how to explain it. And it was one thing that I loved when I was a cook. It's just, to me, I'm putting myself out there in a different way other than necessarily talking to you. I'm putting you out there, showing you what I can do, and showing you, you know, that I care, that I accept you as a person, I accept you as a human being. I want to do something to make you happy. And, you know, that's what that's about. And it's a perfect space out here. It's big enough that we can have a bunch of people around it, but still move around, so. When it comes to being out on the road full time, being a nomad, I had some trepidation to it. I didn't know if I was ready to do it. I knew I wanted to do it, but until you get out there and do it, you know, you don't know. I didn't know how it was going to be being in a wheelchair doing this, and there's a lot of challenges to it. There's a lot of dust, there's a lot of big rocks, but I manage. You know, if you have the ability to get out and do it and you're wondering what it's like, do a 3-week trip. Come out. You know, right now things are clearing out because it's starting to get warmer down here in Arizona and people are dispersing. But, you know, January, February, come, you know, just do 2 weeks. See what it's like. There's people that live out here in Priuses. I mean, if somebody can live in a Prius, you can grab a tent and deal with it for 2 weeks. Or if you have a van or something like that, you need a place to sleep, you need a place to get out of the weather. Two big things, you know, a cooler for food, but you can do it. It's taking that leap. I read something the other day that said, if your dreams don't scare you, you're not dreaming big enough. Well, I appreciate you watching. Again, there's so much information out there between the internet and YouTube. Just check it out and then decide not to be afraid. Again, there's Nomad Center Camp is where a lot of the information, and Van Aid on YouTube or on Facebook was this. You know, check out Bob Wells, Cheap RV Living, HOWA, which is HOWA, Homes on Wheels Alliance. Our big sources of knowledge. Just type in nomad living, type in utility trailer conversion, type in, you know, any of that into YouTube and the internet, and you're going to find so much information that's going to be overwhelming. I myself have a YouTube channel. I haven't posted much to it. I started posting the build, but between editing and having my computer crash, I haven't done anything. Check out Instagram. There's a lot of stuff on pictures on Instagram. You can get a lot of ideas on how to do stuff off Instagram. We'll have a link down below. I'll go ahead and link my YouTube. I don't know when I'll put new videos up, and I've got my Instagram on there. And if I can remember what my Facebook one is, I'll put that up on there too. I appreciate you guys watching. Again, look for the links below, and I hope you get out here and do it.